Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So, a month into the winter retreat, we started just after the last full moon day, and the next full moon day is on Monday. So we completed a month. And we changed the routine a bit. And during these last week or so, we've been having these readings at the mealtime from a book by one of the American teachers from the Insight Meditation Society, Joseph Goldstein, in his book about mindfulness. Some very nice readings, some very good practical advice. And today, the reading was around the first foundation of mindfulness, the mindfulness of the body, and about being more aware of one's activities in all the different postures, walking, sitting, standing and lying down. Now what I find is so good about the Buddha's teachings, it's not limited to sitting in a Dharma hall cross-legged. There's many opportunities where we can develop the practice. It's not just limited to certain times and places. Not limited to a couple of hours on a Saturday night or a couple of hours on a Sunday morning, doing your bit for the spiritual life. So in Buddha's teaching, it's ongoing. And that's something in this quote that he quoted from the Buddha, knowing when one is walking, knowing when one is sitting, knowing when one is standing, knowing when one is lying down. A sense of just being aware of the body in the different postures throughout the day. And if you actually read the sutta on Kaya Gati Nusati, the Buddha talks about being mindful of the body movements in the bathroom and walking here, walking there, doing this, doing that. Yeah, being more aware in the body with some of these activities that we do daily, these ordinary activities of the day. And the sense of using those activities to ground us back into the present moment. And this is very, very important. I feel that, as Joseph commented, that, the mind can get quite scattered. And when the mind gets scattered, then we might end up saying or doing something that's not so skillful because we lose our mindfulness. So, if we can, use just the ordinary activities of the day just to ground us in the present moment. This can be very beneficial. The sort of analogy comes to mind is like the speed ramps on a road. We come to the speed ramp and we have to slow down. It stops us a bit. And the purpose of the speed ramp is that you don't gather so much speed that you have an accident, or crash into something, hit somebody. And I think this is the same principle with these moments of mindfulness, just to break the momentum of the mind, getting caught in too much proliferation, distraction. And, because this is when the mind is like this, then, it's unskillful habits can arise, and especially around speech. And, what the cultivation of this awareness does, it just gives that little moment to reflect before we act or speak. And that can be, can be quite significant, really. And this is quite a minor thing, but something just of the day. Somebody I hadn't seen for a long time, elderly gentleman. I saw him here in the Dharma hall. He is not so mobile now, and his health's not been so good. And so after the meal, I thought I'd go over and say hello, because I hadn't seen him for a while. Ask him how he was, how his health was. And I asked him, how old are you now? And he says, well, I'm almost 88. And the first thought that came to mind was, my father died at 88. But it didn't come out of my mouth. I'm so glad, really, that, it's not a very good thing. Somebody tells you their age and, my father died at 88. Yeah. So, that moment to reflect. It's a natural association for me, isn't it? 88, somebody very significant in my life, passing away at that age. So it's understandable that thought came up, but it didn't manifest outwardly. Modern day life doesn't seem to want to cater for being mindful of just ordinary, simple activities. Busy, it's quite a busy mood now in society. And, some of these very ordinary things that, that we say we do in the monastery, that are just opportunities just to come into the present moment, do a simple physical activity. So, things like washing up. Now, modern day life, people have washing up machines, don't they? A machine to do the washing up for you. Or vacuuming. You have robotic vacuum cleaners now. And you see, less and less people are, doing these sort of more simple, what can be quite good mindful activities. bring us more into the present moment, but carrying attention to doing something quite ordinary. But yeah, what people maybe want to do things more interesting now. There's so much interesting things to look at, isn't there, to hear, rather than just in these mundane, boring chores. But these mundane, boring chores can be beneficial for the practice. I think maybe the mood of society is now less patient than it was, because everything is much more instant. People don't like to have to wait now. Get what you want on demand. and yeah, these are, patience is such an important quality in our life. And those times also where we have to wait for something, queue for something, there are opportunities for a few mindful breaths maybe, rather than getting caught into the irritation of having to wait. Queuing up, supermarkets, traffic jams. Last year I came into Penang, and the immigration is now not so well developed, so I queued up for 1 hour before I got to the immigration officer. It's fine, just to stand and breathe. But also, I looked around, and there were quite a few elderly people in that queue, and I felt, sympathy for them having to stand up for so long. So, in my thoughts, wish them well. So that's also we can do, just to compose the mind on a sort of well-wishing for people when we're queuing up for something. The people around us. The people who might be irritated with having to wait. Many people weren't so irritated because they have the mobile devices to look at. the big distraction. I think that maybe that's what a lot of people do. Instead of taking a few mindful moments, breathe in and breathe out, look at the phone. Keep busy. But there is actually something quite wonderful when we can enjoy doing something simple and ordinary. Be content to wash a dish. Be content to sweep a path. Be content with just simple physical activities. In my youth, remember these long school holidays and being stuck at home and nothing to do. And feeling so restless, so restless. Because there was nothing happening, none of my friends were going out anywhere, and sitting at home, only in those days, not much on the telly, no internet. I was feeling very restless. And now, I can sit in the Dharma hall here in evening meditation and feel quite content with just one in-breath and one out-breath. And from that practice, feeling more content with, simple activities. And using them as a way of, cultivating more and more present moment awareness. And how, some of these simple activities can be sort of more enjoyable when we do give care and attention to them. Because with some of these simple activities, we can have maybe the attitude of getting this done to get on to the next thing. Always doing something with our mind onto the next thing. Maybe the next thing is more interesting than the thing that we're doing in the moment. So that can be the way our mind is a bit conditioned, seeking that which is more interesting and pleasurable than some sort of ordinary, potentially sort of boring activity. One of the lessons I learnt, I've maybe told this story before, but here it comes again, was, when I was an anagarika here. And for the first time in my life, I had to clean toilets. And, initially the response is, got to clean the toilets. And managed to avoid it until then. And again, initially this attitude of, get it done, get out of the way, especially to get to the porridge. Because, we do our morning chores, then we go to the porridge. In the morning, whatever we're having at breakfast. But I realised, I could see that it was making it a sort of unpleasant chore. So I decided to change the attitude around it and giving more care and attention into making the toilets nice. Shining up the taps a bit more, cleaning all the surfaces, really giving care and attention into making the toilets look nice for the people in the monastery to use. So I started to reflect like this. It was so interesting to see how the mind changed around cleaning the toilets, and actually found it quite pleasant. Just with the change of attitude and giving more care and attention into it, rather than doing it to get it done. So this, sort of way of doing things I've tried to more incorporate into other things in my monastic life. Meditation too. If we're meditating to get something, then maybe we're not really giving current attention into what's happening in the present moment. If we're meditating, always trying to get something, it doesn't make meditation a very pleasant experience. But from giving current attention to what is manifesting, then that naturally changes the mindset. Maybe meditation becomes something more enjoyable. Can enjoy the simplicity of an in and out breath. And one of the monks here gave this guided meditation of the week, and he talked about seeing the breath as our Kalyanamitta, our spiritual friend. So these sort of perceptions we can bring up to give more current attention, to encourage more current attention towards something like mindfulness of breathing. And, so bringing our mindset out of just thinking in terms of time to being more in the present moment. I once read an article I found interesting, and this article was about a gentleman. He was a rock star. He was a guitarist in a pop group in the 80s, I think. Not in my era, I was in the monastery then. But he got diagnosed with cancer. And he was given so long to live. And imagine that, quite an impact on him. He had quite an aggressive type of cancer. Doctors said, you've only maybe got a couple of months left. And the effect that had on him was, all of a sudden, all these things about the future and planning and worries about money and this and that, he realised it's not worth bothering about anymore. I won't be around. And the effect it had on him was he began to sort of live more in the present moment, just enjoy what he had. And he said it was quite a revelation for him, because he'd walked down in a place, he'd noticed so many things because his mind was more in the present moment. And things like how nice a flower was and how beautiful this was. And he began to feel a sort of joy. And his reflection was, gosh, I wish I'd realised this earlier. But he didn't. It took a bad dream for him to wake up a bit. Yeah. But just the mind that was more in the present, not caught up in worries and anxieties. Interesting, the way the story unfolds is that he got some doctor came up with a cure that lengthened his life. And because now death wasn't so imminent, he got back into the old habits again. So we hadn't really learned the lesson properly. But now he's passed away. But maybe, this is why we do have this reflection on death, just to really encourage us to make most of what we're doing in the present. And, living more with mindfulness is, taking care of the mind and heart, cultivating mindfulness, listening to wise teachings, being more aware. One of the analogies I quite like from the Buddha is in terms of mindfulness and clear comprehension, because these have to work together in our Dharma practice, mindfulness and wisdom. And this analogy is about a city, and this city has one gateway, and it has a guard on the gate of the city, and that guard has to know who to let in, who's not going to cause problems, and who to turn away in terms of things that people will cause problems. So that guard has to be very mindful of that entrance. If he gets distracted, somebody could slip in. And he has to know who these people are, who the good people are, who the bad people are, who are going to bring benefit, who are going to bring harm. And this is the way mindfulness and wisdom look after the heart. If we're in the present, we understand maybe, as something unskillful as it arises in the mind. And then if we're aware of that, maybe we can deal with it skillfully. It doesn't take over the mind. Doesn't take over. Could say, like a fire, if we catch it early, it's more easy to put out. But if we let it go on for a while, then it can consume things. And, this is what I have, experienced myself, that, those times when I come into the present moment, it does highlight, I'm getting caught up into this unskillful state of mind. And then one can, maybe change the thinking, reflect more skillfully. So this is how mindfulness and wisdom, being aware and knowing what is skillful and what is unskillful. And that's something we have to learn through experience and through practice. Again, like with speech, before we say something, just a moment to reflect on, is this going to be something helpful or beneficial or not? So this is something I had to work with, north of England's social life is sit in the pub, sit around with your friends and make fun of each other, talk about a load of nonsense. Did this for years, It wasn't until I got to university. See, this is more working class north, and I go to university and I'm with people more maybe more middle class. And some of my speech habits could really irritate them. With my friends, it was fine to make fun of them and say something, it was understood. But with some of the guys at university, they weren't so happy at some of the things I said. Coming up with some of these speech habits. So it's something I had to really learn. It's interesting how, different people, also different nationalities, have different humour as well. So university, engineering university students from many countries. So you could, what would have been just a friendly bit of teasing between your friends could really upset somebody else. Yeah. So this is why, doing this practice, not only benefits you, that you don't sort of say things you regret or leave bad effects on the quality of your mind, and doesn't have bad effects on the people who hear it. So, these simple, regular activities that we do, encouragement is to use them as just to bring you back into the present moment, being aware of the physical posture, the physical movements. So they can be so, this can be quite accumulative. The more we do it, the more moments of mindfulness we have, then this have a good effect on the quality of mind. And maybe eventually even the restlessness and the business of the mind can settle down, and we can feel a sense of contentment in the ordinary things that we do. The mind just stays with something ordinary in a peaceful, contented way, rather than restless, wanting to get to the next more interesting thing. So, the more we mindful, the more continuous mindful we can be, then that naturally leads to a calm, concentrated mind. And this is where the insight can arise. When the mind is more clear, we're in the present moment, naturally an understanding arises, especially being aware of when unskillfulness comes into the mind, and the skill of dealing with it. The skill of looking after one's own heart and mind. And that's not only a benefit to ourselves, but it will benefit the people around us, the people we come into contact with, because the way we are affects the people around us. So, practice is not limited to sitting in a special place, cross-legged, but it's an ongoing thing that we can practice throughout the day. In these 4 postures that we move between throughout the day. So, I'd like to just offer these thoughts for your reflection this evening.